Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third episode of HoodieTalk. AI, artificial intelligence, is an integral part of our life, and today in our studio, Jonathan is here to explain about how AI is shaping the future of documentation. Hi Jonathan, welcome to our show.
Good to be here, thanks.
I hope you had a wonderful new year.
I did, yep.
So I'm quite thrilled to hear how AI is actually helping the day-to-day documentation in healthcare business. So would you explain to our viewers how it's actually shaping it and how,
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously artificial intelligence is something that's becoming more and more prevalent in healthcare generally, whether that be things that we're doing around speech and documentation, or through to sort of image recognition and helping radiologists with identifying images and identifying problems in MRIs and breast scans and all these kind of things. And then into data analysis within the EMR, so you're kind of identifying concepts, identifying trends and things which humans might not be able to pick up on. So artificial intelligence generally is becoming more and more prevalent, and it's all based on data. And the more data we can collect and the more data that we now have access to and computational power, that allows us to do these kind of things which are really hopefully advancing healthcare and making lives easier for clinicians.
So how is Tpro helping consultants and doctors in the hospital in terms of documentation?
Yeah, so we've two sides to our business. So firstly is the technology side, which is the speech recognition and the real AI, the clever stuff. And then the other side is the application side of our business. And that's what the users are using on a day-to-day basis.
And I've seen the app, it looks fantastic. Just would you run through how actually it performs, it collects all the data? And previously, we used to use dictaphones to take as an audio record and then go to the computer. It's a long process. Now I hear Tpro is actually helping people to cut down almost 38 steps, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the introduction of EMRs and electronic medical records, clinicians are able to do fantastic things around data and stuff like this. But what it really means for them in a day-to-day world is that there's a bigger pressure on them to collect documentation. And that process is becoming harder and harder. So whereas before they may have been able to scribble notes, or as you say, use kind of traditional tape dictaphones and have a one-to-one relationship with their secretary, now there's a burden on them because they're forced to enter this information into an EMR in order for it to be analysed downstream. What we do is we try and ease that process by giving them intuitive, easy to use applications and interfaces that make that whole process easier. So a good example would be the app, as you say, which is in use across sort of hospitals and clinics in Ireland and the UK, whereby we interface directly with the EMR. We're able to pull patient lists and work lists from the EMR. So I might, as a clinician, have my clinic list of everybody who I'm seeing that day in a schedule. I simply select a patient, dictate on them. The audio is immediately uploaded to the server. It's pre-processed by voice recognition and then routed, depending on a confidence score, either back to the clinician to approve it, or sent for editing by a human transcriber. That expedites that whole process of dictaphone, handing it over to a secretary. Then once they've approved the document that comes back to their device, that's immediately put into the EMR and distributed. So if it's any sort of correspondence that needs to go in the post, we can automate that process as well. So whereas before they would have had to go to a terminal, log in, navigate the EMR, find the patient, type a note or dictate directly into the EMR. Now that process is really refined and cut down. And similarly, all of the downstream, sort of the unseen stuff around what happens to a document once it's been produced, the signing of a document, the distribution of a document, the storing of a document, all of these things which create a administrative pressure, they're expedited as well. So the whole process is cut down, letters go out quicker to GPs, notes are on the EMR in a timely fashion for sort of ongoing review of patients. So you have immediate access to clinical notes when you need them at the point of care. And the cost, and both in terms of financially and in terms of human resource and hospital resources, is dramatically cut down.
Cut down, yeah. And I could see that it has, since your launch, you have been in almost all the major hospitals around Ireland and UK. How hard was it to actually shift into the new systems?
It's surprisingly simple, and the reason being, I suppose, is that the platform has been designed to be simple. And one of the things that really helped us along the way is that we had an existing business providing transcription services. And when we designed our software, it was on the basis of user feedback, and it was on the basis of usability. And we did a lot of work with sort of key clients of ours, the Galway Clinic being one of them, and a number of other hospitals around Ireland and the UK, as you say, and they give us immediate user feedback. So once we get a contract with a hospital, we're able to roll out very quickly. The platform itself is hosted either locally by the hospital or in our private secure cloud. So there's nothing to install locally, there's nothing to implement, there's nothing to roll out in terms of an IT project. And what that means then is you can go quickly to basically the sort of the training and rollout of the software itself. So because it's app-based, web-based, what we can do is we can send self-sign-up emails out to up to 1,000 clinicians at once. We hold engagement meetings and do presentations at their existing clinics when they're available, MDT meetings, this kind of thing. Then they're given a go-live date on a phased basis. And we can see in the background who's downloaded the app, who's signed up, who's done a test file, and we can target individuals that maybe haven't done the self-sign-up process. And then when we go live, we just have people floor walking around in clinics, on the wards, things like that, to just ensure adoption. And what that means is that from a rollout perspective, you can do a hospital or trust-wide rollout in a very short space of time. Our record for a hospital is, I think, 2.5 weeks.
2.5 weeks.
It was a bit of a rush job, bit of a panic thing, but we got it done. And I think the majority of cases, you're looking at sort of 2 to 3 months from contract signing to full rollout.
And just saying, as you were saying, that you handle a lot of data in terms of patient data and transferable data. Just wondering about what are the implications it could happen in terms of GDPR?
So I suppose data security is obviously forefront of everything we do, and it's a key driver in our development process, and that's all based on you have to have data security around patient identifiable information. So pre-GDPR, we designed the system from day one to be fully secure. All data is encrypted at rest and in transit, so that means essentially on a device, on the server, and when we're sending it. The system is controlled by access and permission based things. So what that means is you as an organization know exactly where your data is held. You have just jurisdictional control over that data, and you know who's accessing it, where and when. We keep full audit trails of all document views and everything, and we keep system logs of who is actually getting access, what they're doing, when they're doing it. We can break that down even to sort of IP addresses. So I can say, Jonathan logged in from this location at this time and viewed this document. And if I'm not allowed to view that document, I'd be blocked. So even pre-GDPR, we were ahead of the game in terms of data security because of the nature of the data that we have to deal with.
Absolutely. And when you're handling data like this, what are the risks which could happen that you already have thought about, when you're handling this sort of data?
Yeah, of course. So we as part of any project, we have a full risk analysis and risk register. We have a company that we work quite closely with, Abed Graham, who specialise in these kind of things, and they did a full clinical risk audit with us. And so risks you might identify are things like patient misidentification, obviously data breaches, which we've kind of covered, and then things like things like people having access to other people's passwords and logging in as other doctors. There was a case recently enough in Portugal where a hospital actually got fined, big GDPR fine, because administrative staff were logging in as doctors and viewing records and this kind of thing. So we, as far as possible, mitigate those risks. So there's no way of eliminating risks at all, but we mitigate them as much as possible by adding in things like security controls around multi-factor authentication. The organisations can control password expiry dates, complexity, this kind of thing. We can integrate with Active Directory and single sign-on type solutions, so the hospital themselves actually control the user accounts, and they can remove and add users as they see fit, and also they can deactivate devices and things like that remotely. So again, if you lose your phone, for example, that you can deactivate that account. And then also what we do is we ensure that we don't hold any data longer than is necessary. So with the apps is a good example. Once an audio file is recorded and streamed to the server, that's done in real time. And we don't hold any of that data or process any of that data on the device itself. It's all done securely on the servers, whether that be the hospital servers or our own virtual cloud.
Virtual clouds, Before we started recording, you were talking about the plans going ahead in terms of, like a virtual assistant kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So would you touch base to our viewers regarding?
So I suppose one of the key technologies for us is speech recognition, and that's sort of been widely commoditized now by a number of companies, ourselves included, Nuance. You have Siri, you have Alexa, all of these kind of things now. So speech recognition itself is a kind of a solved problem, and that's really expedited things in terms of documentation and in terms of the burden of documentation, because it pre-processes at least things, and means that you don't have to have as much of a typing resource. But what we see is that is still it's just expediting the existing problem. It's not solving it. So the problem is that there's a growing population. There are more people. They're living longer and they're sicker longer. So there's a greater need for healthcare, and there's this top-down pressure from a financial perspective that there's less money to provide that healthcare, and there's a bottom-up pressure on this growing requirement for healthcare. And all of that healthcare is going to need to be documented. So no matter how much you improve the process of a physician actively documenting a procedure, it's still going to exist. And if I'm a doctor or I'm a clinician and I'm wasting 20% of my time, which is the current sort of statistics, documenting healthcare, it's 20% of my time that I'm not caring for patients and doing the job that I'm paid to do, essentially. So what we see is happening is that there needs to be a paradigm shift away from this active dictation and active documentation. And what we're working on now is, as you say, sort of a virtual assistant, an Alexa type tool, which not only acts as a conversational interface to the MR, but will also act as almost a medical scribe in the room. So imagine a device that is able to listen to an encounter like this, is able to speech recognize what we're saying, provide a transcript. It will do diarization, so it knows when you're talking, it knows when I'm talking, it knows that you're the patient, I'm the clinician. We can abstract clinical concepts from that, so I know, okay, this is a medication, this is a problem, and we can provide context around those concepts. So, is a medication something that I'm being prescribed, or is it something that my mother was allergic to? And we link that through then to family history. And then we can link into the EMR and give context around this as well. So if I know who the patient is, I know what their medical history is, any comorbidities they might have, what their current medications are. And then all of that can basically be processed in real time. So as the encounter finishes, the application would essentially service up a document summary of the encounter, which acts as your clinical note or your letter that's going to be sent out to the GP, and it can give you any actions that you might want to do. So say, okay, I understand that you want to prescribe warfarin, and would you like me to make that order in the EMR. I understand that you want to schedule a follow-up appointment, and would you like me to do that for you? So rather than you as a clinician having to spend 3-4 minutes in the EMR creating a prescription, asking your secretary to follow up with an appointment and doing the documentation itself, this is all done for you, and you just review it and say yes, yes, yes. And then what we can do as well, because you have that contextual understanding, and this is the real where the AI comes in. If you have that deep domain contextual understanding, we can link that through and say, well, actually, there's a bad drug-to-drug interaction here, or this patient has high blood pressure. So rather than prescribing them Tylenol, we will prescribe them something else which is not going to elevate that risk in terms of their high blood pressure. And those kind of things, those sort of clinical decision support tools, they can become really beneficial and really useful. So you even imagine something sort of sepsis warnings. You know, it's a huge problem for healthcare, sepsis. As a doctor, you might not have access to the full information about me. So if I present with a fever or something, you might treat the fever. You might think I have flu or something like that. You might not know that I had minor surgery the week before, and you wouldn't spot that this is a potential sepsis risk. Whereas the EMR has all this data, and the assistant would have access to that data. And because we now have all of this data stored, and we have this deep domain integration, we're able to service up these warnings because of computational power. We can do this all in real time.
So these will come as a prompt to the clinicians where they can see
exactly,
this person had a surgery.
So not only is this hopefully going to handle the documentation side of things and the ordering and the prescribing, it will also give you value add in terms of clinical decision support and things like that. So I think, you know, that could be a real valuable tool in the future for clinicians, but what it does represent is a kind of a paradigm shift away from active traditional documentation. I'm sending you a letter and I'm going to spend 4 or 5 minutes doing it after every appointment, and to something which is much more passive and happens in the background. And that's going to prove, I think the problems around that are going to be with adoption rather than technology. I think the technology exists, but the willingness to adopt it is going to be the real blocker there.
But I've seen that you're grown so quickly, and you know, I hope that you'll get the similar sort of response with your new plans as well. Like, it's amazing to see, Jonathan, how AI is helping with the documentation. I wish you all the success in your future, and thanks again for being in our show.
Thanks.
So guys, if you want to know more about it, please visit the website tpro.io. You can follow our content on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. As well as, guys, if you like this video, please share and subscribe to our channel. Also, visit our website, hirehood.com, neighborhood for professionals. Thank you very much. See you with another video. Bye.